Mira and Shekhar are a happy couple who have just gotten married. However, lately, Mira, who works as a lawyer, has been receiving threats to drop the case she is currently handling, a murder case involving a man named Jimmy. Shekhar keeps advising Mira not to take the case because it's too dangerous. However, Mira still takes the case and wins it. Jimmy is sentenced to life imprisonment for committing murder. 6 months have passed. Mira is seen pregnant, and they both seem so happy now. But during their journey, they are suddenly hit by an unknown car. 1 year later, the accident causes Mira to have a miscarriage and experience short-term memory loss, meaning she can only remember events for a short time and then forgets again. Mira has now become an alcoholic. Shekhar has also left her by having an affair and remarrying. Every day, Mira takes the same train route. She has become so familiar with the route that she memorizes everything she passes. Mira often notices a woman who lives there. She feels the woman is like her when she was with Shekhar, as she seems so happy with her husband every day. This woman is named Nusrat. Then, the story shifts when a police officer receives a report about a missing woman named Nusrat. She has been missing for 2 days, and the case begins to be investigated by a female police officer named Dalbir Kaur. The investigation starts by questioning the hospital where Nusrat works. From there, it is learned that on the night Nusrat disappeared, she was at a party at her ex-boyfriend's place. But when the police investigated the party, it turned out Nusrat went home early that day. The police then learned that Nusrat had been consulting a psychiatrist. The police met Dr. Hamid, the psychiatrist handling Nusrat. Dr. Hamid said that a week earlier, he saw Nusrat arguing with a strange man. But when asked by Dr. Hamid, Nusrat said she was fine and changed the subject. Dr. Hamid felt that Nusrat was hiding something. The police then requested the recordings of the conversations between Dr. Hamid and Nusrat. From this, it was found that Nusrat's husband was very possessive and dominant, causing their relationship to be often strained. Hearing the recording, the police immediately went to see Anand, Nusrat's husband. The police wondered why Anand didn't report Nusrat's disappearance. Instead, it was reported by the hospital where Nusrat worked. The police asked Anand about this, but he only said that he didn't know where Nusrat was. He also said that lately, they had often argued and planned to divorce. The story shifts to Mira being on the train exactly on the day Nusrat disappeared. At that time, she saw Nusrat again at her house, but suddenly she saw a man coming from behind and they hugged. The man was Dr. Hamid. But of course, Mira didn't know either of them. What Mira felt at that moment was just anger, because she felt Nusrat was destroying her own married life by having an affair with that man. When Mira got off the train, she met her friend and told her about Nusrat having an affair. Mira felt as if Shekhar had cheated on her. Mira, in a drunken state, kept yelling and cursing, saying she would confront Nusrat. But her friend kept trying to calm her down and urged Mira to go home because she was already too drunk. On the way home by train, Mira kept imagining Nusrat having an affair. Feeling even more upset, especially under the influence of alcohol, Mira decided to visit Nusrat's house. After ringing the doorbell multiple times without anyone answering, she soon saw Nusrat walking alone into the nearby woods. Mira then ran after Nusrat. A man was seen taking sunset photos from behind a tree. Mira, heavily intoxicated, didn't pay much attention to the man. She was only focused on chasing Nusrat and hit her. The scene then shifts, showing Mira with a head injury waiting for a train to go home. Meanwhile, in the morning, the police found Nusrat's body in the woods. According to forensic information, Nusrat was killed, and her body was dragged. The location where the body was found was not the place where she died. The police also obtained CCTV footage from Nusrat's house, showing Mira going there drunk and looking angry. Additionally, the police found Mira's ID card not far from where Nusrat's body was found, making Mira the prime suspect in Nusrat's murder. The scene returns to Mira, who had just woken up. She looked very confused, especially after seeing her body covered in bruises. She tried to remember what really happened. Soon, Mira's phone rang. She received a message from an unknown person saying, "I saw you in the forest. Nusrat is dead." After seeing the message, Mira started to flashback. She remembered seeing a man in the woods. She also recalled being very angry with Nusrat at that time. She then looked at her phone, which showed a video of her yelling at Nusrat, saying she wanted to kill her. Mira was very distressed because she couldn't fully remember what happened last night. She then went to a counseling class to share her story. From there, it was revealed how Mira ended up divorcing Shekhar. After the accident that caused Mira's miscarriage, she would get drunk almost every day. She even once hit Shekhar, injuring him. On one occasion, Mira approached Shekhar's boss and spoke rudely to her, all under the influence of alcohol. Shekhar could no longer tolerate Mira because it could ruin his job reputation as well, so he finally asked for a divorce, but Mira tried to prevent it. After sharing all her grievances in the counseling class, Mira began to think that she might have hurt Nusrat too, just as she had hurt Shekhar in the past. When Mira was on the street, she was suddenly approached by the police and asked several questions regarding Nusrat. The police showed her some evidence such as CCTV footage showing Mira at Nusrat's house and her ID card found there. But Mira denied it. She said she didn't know Nusrat, and she also forgot the incident because there wasn't enough incriminating evidence. The police could not yet take Mira into custody. When at home, Mira kept recalling the incident. She then remembered the message that had entered her phone at that time. Mira replied to the message. Shortly after, her phone rang, showing an incoming call from someone named Walter. He claimed to know everything that happened in the forest, but said that information wouldn't come for free. He invited Mira to meet and insisted not to involve the police. Moments later, the doorbell rang. The police had arrived at Mira's house. Here, the police showed new evidence in the form of CCTV footage from the train station, which showed Mira in a bloody state waiting for the last train departure, and it was the station closest to the incident site of Nusrat. But as a lawyer, Mira knew this wasn't enough to make her a suspect, because there was no motive. Here, Mira and Nusrat didn't know each other, but during the conversation, Officer Dalbir received news that Nusrat's autopsy results had been released, revealing she was pregnant at the time of death, and Mira's blood sample was found on Nusrat's body. So now Mira could no longer deny it. The police then invited Mira to come to their office, but Mira pretended to ask for permission to take her medicine first. She used this opportunity to jump out the window, accidentally dropping her phone. Mira managed to escape from the police and went to see the man from the first case she had helped. Mira asked him for a phone, money, and a gun. After getting all that, Mira then met with Dr. Hamid, Nusrat's psychiatrist, while pointing a gun at him. Mira asked if he had an affair with Nusrat and if he had killed her. Dr. Hamid explained that on that day, Nusrat contacted him and asked him to meet at her house. Nusrat said she was pregnant and had been having an affair, but she did not tell Dr. Hamid who the affair was with. So on the night she was killed, she actually wanted to explain this issue to her lover. Hearing this, Mira thought that Nusrat might have been killed by her lover. Mira then tried to return to the forest where Nusrat died. There, she met a man taking care of horses. Showing him a photo of Nusrat, Mira asked if he had ever seen Nusrat or her. The man said he had never seen either Mira or Nusrat. Feeling at a dead end, Mira then returned to the train station. But when she wanted to top up her card, it was found that Mira's card was last used on the 31st at 20:30, so Mira did not take the last train as the police saw in the station's CCTV. Meanwhile, the police received a report that Mira was seen at the train station. The police immediately went there to search for her, but Mira was already at Nusrat's memorial service. There, she tried to find out things she might have missed. When she saw photos of Nusrat on display, Mira saw that the phone used by Nusrat was exactly like the phone used by the man she had met in the forest earlier. Mira immediately went back to see the man. It turned out that this man had just stolen Nusrat's phone. With a little threat, this man returned Nusrat's phone to Mira. After that, Mira accidentally met Shekhar's old boss, whom she had encountered when she was drunk. But the bosses showed no hatred at all towards Mira. Instead, she asked why Mira had been hard to reach all this time. Mira immediately apologized for her mistake at that event. Shekhar also frightened Mira to stay away from his boss, which is why Mira hadn't had the chance to apologize to her directly. She's a bit confused by Mira's statement because, according to her, at that time, Mira only felt nauseous and dizzy. She was laid down in the office, and there was nothing bad done by Mira. So when Mira woke up, Shekhar immediately got angry and said Mira had done something unpleasant to his boss. But in reality, Mira had never done that. Mira asked again why Shekhar was fired because, as far as she knew, it was all because of her. But it turned out that Shekhar was fired because he had harassed a female colleague. Even Shekhar's boss was happy that Mira was no longer with Shekhar now, because when it came to women, he was untrustworthy. Hearing all these words made Mira realize that she had been lied to by Shekhar all this time. Mira started to remember the actual incident of how Shekhar manipulated her into drinking until she was drunk, faking injuries, and claiming that Mira had hit him when drunk. In fact, Shekhar deliberately hurt himself and blamed Mira to have a reason to divorce her. Mira was so frustrated knowing this truth, but it had already happened, especially since she was now being sought by the police. So Mira had to refocus on finding out the actual events of Nusrat's murder. Now all Mira had was Nusrat's phone. After turning on the phone and trying to find information, Mira was shocked after seeing the chat contents. It turned out that the one having an affair with Nusrat was Shekhar. On the day Nusrat was killed, she was arranging to meet Shekhar in the forest. She wanted to tell him that a man named Walter was blackmailing her because he had photos of them together. If Nusrat did not give him money, he would report it to Anand, her husband. Mira then remembered that the man who had invited her to meet was also named Walter. Mira quickly sent a message using Nusrat's phone and arranged to meet Walter, as he seemed to be the one who knew everything. On the day of the meeting, Walter was seen walking towards Mira, but before they could talk, Walter was suddenly hit by a car and died. Mira approached Walter and took his phone. Before dying, Walter managed to say his house, but Mira did not know Walter's address. Mira immediately contacted Anand with Walter's phone and asked for Walter's address by threatening him, because Anand was the one who assigned Walter to spy on Nusrat. But Walter took the opportunity to blackmail Nusrat. After getting the address, Mira headed to Walter's house. There were many photos hanging there, and they were pictures of Nusrat with Shekhar in the forest. Seeing these photos, Mira had a flashback of the incident. She remembered that when she was about to hit Nusrat, she was pushed by Nusrat. Then Shekhar came and hit Nusrat's head several times because Shekhar knew that by the next day, Mira would have forgotten everything. Remembering this, Mira immediately called Shekhar using Nusrat's phone. The call was answered by Shekhar's wife. So all this time Shekhar had been saving Nusrat's number using Mira's name. His wife was angry that Mira kept disturbing the family. Hearing the conversation, Shekhar was immediately shocked and took the phone. Mira invited him to meet now. Shekhar seemed quite annoyed, but he had no other choice because Mira already had evidence from Nusrat's phone, so he had to get the phone back. Shekhar came to meet Mira. At the meeting, Mira immediately asked Shekhar why he had to kill Nusrat under the threat of a gun. Shekhar finally told the story. He said he had indeed been having an affair with Nusrat, and as usual, they met in the forest. But on that day, Shekhar was puzzled why Mira followed Nusrat. Shekhar immediately hit Mira until she fainted. After that, Nusrat said she was pregnant. Of course, that was very surprising. Shekhar asked her to abort it, but Nusrat did not want to because she wanted to divorce her husband and start a new family with Shekhar. But Shekhar said he did not want a child. Nusrat remained adamant and always threatened to reveal all his actions. That's when Shekhar strangled Nusrat. Hearing all of Shekhar's story, Mira got very emotional and hit Shekhar until he fainted. But this was not over because Mira was still puzzled about who had killed Walter. Since she had seen the car's license plate number, Mira tried to find out the name of the car owner. The search results showed the name Jimmy Baga. Mira remembered that the car that had hit her before was the same one that hit Walter, and it happened after she won the case and had Jimmy Baga sentenced to life imprisonment. But when she searched for news about him, it turned out Jimmy Baga had hanged himself in prison. What's more surprising was a photo of Jimmy Baga with police officer Dalbir Kaur, who had been investigating the Nusrat case. Mira also started to see the results of Walter's photos that captured Dalbir's face in the forest. Mira began to realize that all of this was connected. But at that moment Dalbir had already come, pointing a gun at Mira. It turned out Dalbir was Jimmy Baga's child. She felt that her father's death was caused by Mira because she had won the case, causing her father to commit suicide. Since her father's death, Dalbir had been following Mira's life, and on the day of Nusrat's death, Dalbir had also been following Mira. When she followed her to the forest, Dalbir saw how Shekhar strangled Nusrat until she fainted. Then Shekhar left. Dalbir saw Mira, who was already injured. At that moment, she intended to kill Mira. But Nusrat wasn't dead, and she witnessed Dalbir strangling Mira. Dalbir then released Mira and chased Nusrat and killed her. Mira woke up without remembering the incident and walked home. Dalbir, who had not succeeded in killing Mira, finally used another method. She intentionally trapped Mira by altering the train station's CCTV footage's time to match Nusrat's death time, making it look like she was at the station at the time of the last train. So everything went according to Dalbir's plan. But with a laugh, Mira said she knew the person who killed Walter must have had her phone. When she went to Walter's house, she deliberately sent a message from Walter's phone to her phone, saying that all the evidence was at the house. So Dalbir was tricked into coming to Walter's house. Mira immediately tried to grab the gun from Dalbir, and eventually there was a struggle, and Dalbir died. The final step was to put the gun used earlier into Shekhar's hand, and he was eventually imprisoned, and the film ends. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe, because by subscribing you have supported me to make better videos. See you in the next video.